For more on this, I'm joined from Washington, D.C. by Rina Shah, political strategist and on-air analyst. Rina, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, is it a huge surprise that Tony Blair attended the White House for talks on the future of Gaza, given his expertise in this particular region?
Well, certainly Blair's expertise brings credibility, but it also raises a lot of questions. As a former Republican campaign strategist, I see Tony Blair's role in Trump's Gaza talks as a double-edged sword. His experience as a Middle East envoy after 2007 definitely gives Trump's team a seasoned voice on rebuilding Gaza. Axios, the publication, has reported that he's been advising Steve Witkoff for months. But Blair's ties to a think tank linked to that Trump Riviera idea, which was floated about relocating Gazans, that is what has sparked the most skepticism in me, at least. And where I grew up, we value straight talk. So Trump needs to clarify Blair's role here to avoid looking like he's outsourcing policy to foreign elites.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And let's touch on Tony Blair's think tank. Obviously worked on a post-war Gaza plan that included Trump Riviera, which is being so provocative. Are there concerns that this plan could actually be back on the table now that we know Tony Blair is in the mix?
Well, I've also worked with a number of Republican and independent candidates who know that communities across the globe want results, not just here in America. And they also want talk that is not rooted in dreamlike endeavors. So Trump's meeting with Blair and Jared Kushner, and that's again per Reuters news there, it was focused on food aid and hostages, which is critical as Gaza faces famine. But his earlier Riviera talk, turning Gaza into a resort, essentially, feels really disconnected when kids are starving. And that's, again, per UN reports. So I have to say this. I learned service starts with the vulnerable from a very young age. That's something that's been rooted in me. And I believe, this is my worldview, essentially, that any plan has to prioritize security and aid over flashy projects. And it has to invite, sort of local voices. And I know that sounds a little vague, but you can't just have outsiders like Tony Blair at the table. So I look forward to seeing what this White House will do, because I know that this is a hot topic issue as we approach the 2026 midterms. Voters are demanding, particularly on the Republican side, America First policies. So Blair advising Trump really risks alienating the Republican base if it looks like a foreign ex-prime minister is steering Gaza's future on behalf of America.
As these diplomatic talks take place, Israel is continuing its bombardment of Gaza. And as you just said to me, the humanitarian situation in the country needs to be at the forefront of everyone's mind, because we're hearing daily of deaths due to malnutrition. So, Rina, my question is, right now, do you not think it's too premature for the White House to be talking about the day after, when it just remains unclear to me, to the audience, and to everyone out there what the plan is now, what Israel's military plans actually are?
Well, the Gaza crisis, with over 62,000 deaths since 2023, and that's per Gaza health authorities, it's a humanitarian disaster. We all know it. We're all seeing it in real time. And with Tony Blair's input on aid, as was discussed in the White House meeting, it's urgent. This talk of getting aid to Gazans is urgent because tanks are rolling into Gaza City. But as an analyst, I've seen how politics can stall progress. And Trump's promise to end the war, which was made during his campaign because of the inaction, essentially, of the Biden-Blinken duo of the previous administration, despite that, it's Trump's talk that needs to be backed up by action now, not just talks with Blair and Kushner, but expanded talks with other world leaders. Here in the United States, we have plenty of political activists who are vocal about this. And we really believe in rallying for neighbors in need. When we see that imagery out of Gaza daily, it's hard not to look at these people and feel some kinship for the suffering that they continue to experience. I think Gaza's people deserve the same urgency when we talk about American priorities. If there was a group of people being starved anywhere else in the world, how would we talk about that? But as these talks continue, one thing is key, and that's transparency. And that is what this Trump administration is going to need to bring to the fore in order to avoid backlash.
And Rina, a lot of conversations that I've had on my show with many people and a lot of analysts have said the US needs to put more pressure on Israel. It's the US who can essentially stop Benjamin Netanyahu against this occupation of Gaza. And it's becoming more and more clear that Western allies are now turning against Israel and are not defending them like they did before. What point does Benjamin Netanyahu need to, get to in the situation in Gaza to actually make Donald Trump stand up and say, enough is enough? We need to come to a conclusion, not just almost give him carte blanche.
I think President Trump himself has been frustrated by the very same things you just discussed there, in that Trump had thought he could broker a deal with Netanyahu because they had a comfortable, cozy relationship for a long time now. And it has driven, certainly, I think, Trump to a frustrated point. To a point of feeling as if he's the losing guy here, that he may be being made a fool of every time Netanyahu comes to Washington, which we're now past the 6-month mark of Trump's presidency, and we've seen Netanyahu make multiple visits. But again, no conclusion, no end. And so I think what you see the Trump administration trying to do right now is deploy a strategy of let's throw everything at the wall. But having secret meetings does nothing for ending what is certainly a prolonged attack by Netanyahu's government on innocent Gazans, all in the name of trying to root out Hamas. It feels rather frustrating to continue to talk about it in this way because nobody has, and particularly not the Trump administration, put forth a solution that feels as if it would perhaps limit Netanyahu instead of embolden him. So what I mean to say with all this is that we are in a hurry up and wait moment. And it's anyone's guess as to at what point Bibi Netanyahu will stop what he's doing. Again, all in the name of trying to root out Hamas, which brings people to the table, but it is certainly not an end-all, be-all solution.
And also, you just mentioned the midterm elections to me. They're going to be happening in 2026, of course. How much do the American people actually really resonate with what's happening between Israel and Hamas and the suffering of the Gazans? Is this a really important thing that people will go to the ballot box about? Or is it something that Americans are not really in tune with?
Americans are very in tune with what is happening in the Middle East because of our involvement, our continued money being deployed to places where we do not live as Americans. Having Israel's back is one thing in the aftermath of the horrific October 7th attacks, but continuing to issue blank checks to governments or to continue to aid them with weaponry, it feels as if we are at a pivot point in American politics because we saw, particularly with Democrats, that the Democrat Party is fractured over the issue of backing Palestinians, for example. Really what I think we have seen in our politics right now is a sense that America needs to, and particularly our federal government officials, need to be more transparent with how we spend our dollars. And when they're spent abroad without a sort of end date, that is what drives voters to the ballot box. But this is, again, this issue and what is front of mind on the day of the midterms. And as we approach the midterms, all kind of complicate these matters. And that is just where American politics is right now, where people truly are critical of the federal government. But again, it's all about how we spend abroad. And particularly with this issue, I think it's because we get the suffering, the imagery daily through our smartphones, that it is more front of mind than most people would think here in these United States.
Rina Shah, thank you so much for your analysis and for taking the time to talk to us.